gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 158. Please be sure to follow, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. In the comments section, let me know, what is your favorite dish for Thanksgiving? Because that's where we're going to be diving into this week. The Thanksgiving slate, go through all the Draftkings plays, strategies, how to attack the 3-game slate. And then we're going to break down a couple bets that I like so far. So, always one of my favorite days of the year. Tend to be pretty successful from a DraftKings standpoint. I think I won a showdown 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Did a little friends group where we did a tournament, took that down, had a couple huge parlays hit. Last year was pretty bad, though, if I do remember correctly. I think I just tilt betted, lost like 10 units, totally drunk on Thanksgiving. So hopefully we don't repeat that. But otherwise, we've been pretty good over the years. So always one of my favorite days. From an NFL standpoint, you get 3 standalone games. It's fun. Three game slates are kind of their own little monster. It's kind of like a mix between Showdown and the classic slate. So a lot of ways we could dive into it, a lot of strategies. We might as well get right into it. We have 3 games. The first of which is the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. 10.5-point favorites are the Lions at home. So, I mean, they've been rolling lately. I do worry division game, short week. Maybe 10.5 is a bit much. I could just see garbage time, the Bears kind of coming back, similar to what they did last week. But I don't know. I don't love the 10.5. So I actually took it down. I did an alt line parlay. I got them -2.5. And then I took the Green Bay money line. Obviously, we'll get to that game later. And that's at -105. So like the number and like getting Green Bay just to have to win by, or Detroit just to have to win by a field goal, and then Green Bay just to win. So I do like that quite a bit. But 48.5 is the total here. Probably one of the more popular games on this 3-game slate from a DraftKings standpoint. Obviously, being in a dome with a team like the Lions that, again, basically have a 30-point team implied total, I do expect them to be very popular. Now, you can start with Goff stacks. I don't know that a ton of people will go there. They'll probably go through the running backs, maybe try and get some pieces of the passing game on Detroit. And then I could see Caleb stacks actually being pretty popular just because he is $1,200 cheaper. So I think it's a little bit easier to stomach those stacks. You go Caleb 5,300 with a DJ Moore 56, Keenan's only 51, a Dunze 5,000. I would expect a Dunze to be the lowest owned of them, obviously the cheapest, but I mean, basically everybody on this team got 10 targets last week, including Komet. So I like Komet too in Caleb stacks. And like I said, I do think that side is probably pretty popular and that people will bring it back with 2 Lions. So that's a way you can approach it. Maybe in smaller field, I think it's fine to build that way, but I probably would rather just overstack onslaught the Lions here. And, Goff hasn't been incredible on Thanksgiving Day, but just this is a different animal in this team. And I could see them rolling over the Bears, and maybe the Bears just get a little bit during garbage time. So I wouldn't be opposed to a Goff stack where you go Goff, Amon-Ra, and Jameson, or one of those 2 and Laporta. And then you can even throw, I mean, obviously Gibbs would make more sense in a Goff stack, but I think you could throw Montgomery in there to get different and basically say that that's all the scoring. Detroit absolutely rolls in this game. Goff gets there with 2 pass catchers. Montgomery scores maybe even 2 times. And I mean, if that is what happens, you're going to need Detroit. And if you have all these guys, the other 2 games could maybe fall short, and a Detroit onslaught could really get you there. So I think that makes sense. And then in that onslaught, I don't think necessarily you would have to bring it back with any Bears, but if you wanted to, I mean, they're so cheap. If you wanted to go DJ Moore, he'd probably be the preferred one there. I mean, if you're only playing one Bear, he probably has the most upside, can get there on limited touches. So that would be the preferred one there. I would probably prefer Keenan a little bit more in my Caleb stacks and just Caleb getting there volume wise and bringing these guys along with him. So that's just something to keep in mind there. As far as the backfield goes for Chicago, I do think that they go overlooked a little bit. So maybe Swift, obviously it's a tough matchup, but we could see him break off a long one. And on a 3-game slate, or if you're playing showdown, obviously he doesn't need much to get there. So I think it makes sense at a lower ownership. You can make a case for him. And then Roshan Johnson surprisingly has 6 touchdowns all inside the 5-yard line. So if they get down close, they're probably going to give him the ball. 4,500. He could be one of those cheap pieces we see on these small slates if he scores, and it could definitely help your lineup to pay up for some of these higher price guys. So I would definitely keep those two in mind. And then as far as the backfield goes for the Lions, I think you can make a case to play both Montgomery and Gibbs together. And the Lions could score 4 touchdowns, and it could be through all of them could be through this backfield. So Montgomery is banged up at the moment as of recording this, and obviously keep an eye on that. I do think the Q tag probably keeps his ownership down a little bit. I don't think he'll be low owned necessarily on a 3-game slate, but probably lower owned than what he should be with an injury concern. So just keep an eye on that. Obviously, if he doesn't go, I mean, basically you just got to play Gibbs in every single one of your lineups. But that's really what I'm looking at here. I'll also say if you wanted to onslaught the Lions and not bring it back with any Bears, maybe play Detroit defense and just say it's just an absolute beatdown, and they win 31 to 6 or 31-7, and you just take the Lions defense, they give short fields to Goff or this backfield, and that's how they could get there. So that's how I'm looking at that game. Next we have the Giants at Dallas. Obviously, this game's pretty gross. 3.5-point favorites are Dallas at home. 37.5 is the total, so pretty gross. I would expect that this is the lowest owned game. Definitely. I think there's some pieces that will get some ownership, but I think if you want to get different, just right out of the gates, come out here and stack this game, because nobody's going to want to play Tommy DeVito. I don't. Now it's possible that they play lock, but probably not. They're in full tank mode. They just fired their coaching staff. I mean, we've seen, I'm not going to say that Dallas is a good team. I could see Dallas absolutely murdering them here, but with the coach being fired, first game on Thanksgiving, short week, I don't think it's great. But from a motivational standpoint, maybe it does something for the Giants. But if you don't have the personnel to really capitalize on that, doesn't matter. But it's Thanksgiving. It's weird. So we could see anything here. I would expect most people to expect the Cowboys to roll here and maybe play some Dowdle, some CeeDee Lamb. I do expect Cooper Rush to get a little bit of love here at only 4,800. He's been at least competent somewhat. Not great. I don't think he breaks a slate for you, but on 3-game slate, if his savings and salary allow you to pay up for a lot of these studs and the studs go off, then I definitely think it makes sense. If I were to play Rush, it would be with CD and probably a Schoonmaker. Now, I doubt Ferguson plays on the short week. It's possible he does. If he does go, I would have a lot of interest. The Giants are actually incredible. The one thing they do is shut down tight ends. So I wouldn't play any tight end from Dallas unless it was in the Cooper Rush stack. I do think there's some better tight end plays on the slate. Now, Brandon Cooks could potentially be activated for this game coming off of IR at 4,500. I think that if he is, that makes a ton of sense. I don't think a lot of people will go there, so you could definitely make a case to do that. And then I do think that Turpin 3,300 will be what everybody thinks is that cheap guy that gets them sneaky on Thanksgiving. He's not going to be sneaky at all. He'll probably actually be far too highly owned. I'll probably play a little bit of him. Just the salary savings allows you a lot. It makes sense too, though, if you are going to play him with Cooper Rush, because if he breaks off a 60-yard, 70-yard touchdown, at least you get to double dip there with the Turpin and Rush. And then same thing. I would expect a lot of people probably do pair him with the Dallas defense, because if he returns a kick for a touchdown, you double dip there as well with the Dallas defense and him. So I think it actually could make sense to go Cooper Rush, Turpin, and Dallas defense, and then throw Lamb in there maybe also for your Cooper Rush stack. So just some things to keep in mind there. Just don't think at all that you're getting cute or different by playing Turpin. And I really do think that Brandon Cooks would be in play. And Jalen Tolbert It's only 3,800. I honestly don't think anybody's going to play him. I think most people are going to go to Lamb, maybe the tight end position, and Turpin. So just some ways to get different. I don't love it, but most people won't. So that probably automatically gets you different. On the Giants side, I actually do like Tracy quite a bit. 5,800. He's probably the most palatable running back on the slate outside of the bigger name guys. So I do expect him to be pretty popular, but Dallas has not been good defending the run. Obviously the Giants got pretty far behind, so it kind of hurt him last week from a rushing standpoint, but still averaged 4.7 yards per carry. So he is incredibly efficient on the ground. He can break some big plays. So I like Tracy at 5,800. Actually caught 4 passes last week too. So don't hate that. Neighbors is going to get targeted, but their DeVito targets are maybe locks. So I don't love it, but I don't expect him to be too popular at 7,100. So if you did want to stack this game up, it would make sense maybe on a bring back for a rush stack, or if you wanted to skinny stack just Lamb and him or Dowdle and him. And I didn't really touch too much on Dowdle. I actually like him quite a bit. I think Tracy maybe gets a little bit more ownership here. So Dowdle makes sense, especially if you do think Dallas is going to roll. Maybe you play Dallas defense and Dowdle, and that's your only exposure to this game. That can make some sense. And then from the Giants standpoint, that's basically all I'm doing. And maybe the Giants defense. I will say I could see most people trying to skip over this game, and maybe the defenses do get pretty popular because they go, well, I'm not playing anything in this game, and I might as well just play the defense. So just keep that in mind. And that's another thing to keep in mind here too, is a lot of people on these 3-game slates want a little piece of each one of them because you're going to be watching them. So you don't want to leave anything out. People have fear of missing out to where they got to at least have one, maybe 2 players, a little stack in each game. So as I said with the Lions stack before, or even the night game, if you want to overstack that, don't worry about canceling out one of these games because if it fails and the other 2 games, or even you just focus on one game and it far and away exceeds one of these 3 games, then you're sitting pretty. So definitely keep that in mind. The night game, we have Miami at Green Bay. This one's weird just because it's in Green Bay. Probably going to be pretty cold, maybe 20 degrees, 15, 20 mile an hour winds I'm seeing right now. Now, obviously, this is on a Tuesday. We still have some time for that to change, but I would expect it to be cold regardless. Not really great for Miami. I do think that keeps their ownership down. Green Bay's 3.5-point favorites. As I said, I already have them on the money line on the parlay with Detroit minus 2.5. So I do like them. Total's 47.5. I'm kind of leaning the under in this one. I I just, if it's going to be freezing cold, if it's going to be windy, Green Bay tends to try and run the ball early. And if they can get out to a lead, I'd expect them to continue to run the ball. If they don't get pushed, I don't know that Love's going to have to throw the ball a ton. So the cold weather could lean towards an under. 47.5 is pretty high. Now, these teams are certainly capable. If either one of them are pushed, they could put this total over 50, but as of right now, I'm kind of leaning towards the under. So just something to keep in mind there. We could start with the Dolphin side. Obviously, Tua coming off of 2 really good games, a huge explosion last week. I'm so pissed. I had him. It was Tua, Achane, Smith, and then I had Tyreek instead of Waddle. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Went with the mega stack for Tua, and it paid off. It was good, but it just missed with Waddle. I think I had him in like 4 different lineups, and I was just like, I really can't play Waddle. So that didn't work out. But I do think you can go there. I think it won't be that popular this week. Some people might make, if they're making a couple lineups, maybe make 1 to a lineup just because of what they saw last week and try and stack it up like that and maybe do the exact same stack that they saw on Sunday with Achane, Jonnu, and Waddle. So I think if you use Tyreek Hill, that probably gets you a little bit different. But obviously, Achane is a monster play here. 7,700 has taken over this backfield. Basically, is the wide receiver 1-2 in most weeks. So I love Achane. I think you can make a case here to literally just put in Achane, Gibbs, and Jacobs, and then start building from there because they do look like 3 of the best plays on the slate. So I do like Achane. I'm gonna have some Tua stacks. I'll have some Achane mixed in, maybe Tyreek and Waddle. And then you can even throw Jonnu in there. If you wanted 3 pass catchers, I think it's fine because obviously 2 is not going to get there with his legs. And then you could bring it back with a Jacobs or one of these cheaper Green Bay wide receivers or both if you really think this game is going to get there. I'd expect Love stacks to be a little bit more popular. 6,300, a pretty good price for him. The guy just, it's so weird. There's plays where you're like, that's clearly one of the best quarterbacks in football. And then there's plays where it's like, what the hell was that? So, it's kind of Jekyll and Hyde with him. But at home, Jordan Love has played pretty well here. So I do like him quite a bit. I will play some stacks with him. Now, you can make a case to just play Jordan Love stacks. And maybe if you don't think Miami can really get there or keep up, I think it makes sense to stay away from them. But I will say most people will go with Love stacks because Love is affordable. His wide receivers are certainly affordable on the slate, and then just bring it back with Achane. So just keep that in mind. That's probably pretty popular. Dobbs dealing with a concussion, probably not able to go on a short week, which helps because it condenses it a little bit. Probably prefer to pair Love with Reed and Watson. You can also play Kraft in there, but they do randomly throw these other tight ends out there that could be annoying. So I do like Kraft, though, most likely probably just in Love stacks. So pair Love with 2, maybe even 3 of these pass catchers. I think Wicks is definitely in play here at 4,200. Obviously hasn't been great, but when this target share is a little bit more condensed, I think it actually does make some sense. Christian Watson obviously has the big play upside. I think if you're not really stacking this game and you wanted to just go Christian Watson as a one-off or even a skinny stack with maybe an Achane or a Tyreek, I think that could be a way to get your exposure to this game too. Miami's pretty good defensively, especially defending the pass. But if I was just playing one Green Bay Packer that wasn't Josh Jacobs, it would probably be Christian Watson because of the big play upside. Now, Reed has some big play upside of his own, so I don't hate him as a one-off or in a skinny stack either, but probably really do like, build in a couple Tua stacks, build in a couple Love stacks, and then I will probably have Josh Jacobs in most of my lineups, especially if it's going to be cold and it's going to be windy, and they go with a heavy running game. You play Green Bay's defense, you play Josh Jacobs, and just these Miami guys getting hit over and over and over by a big bruising back like Josh Jacobs. He could just wear them down as the game goes on. So I do like him quite a bit. Obviously, we saw him go nuts recently, so definitely like him. One of my favorite plays on the slate. So obviously went through a lot there game by game. Real quick, did want to just build some of these lineups just to kind of see what it looks like. So quickly, as I said, let's go with the Goff stack. So we'll go Goff, Gibbs, and Amon-Ra just to see if we can fit it. Now we have 4,666 remaining. So it's definitely doable. If we wanted to bring it back with a DJ Moore, I think that's fine. And then we could go with a Dowdle running back. That's our exposure to Dallas. So we can pair him with the Dallas defense. Then that leaves us 4,600 remaining. So if we go to Laporta here, he's 41. So that gets us pretty cheap there. Now it gets a little bit sketchy. So it's pretty expensive to do Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra. So for that reason, I'd say it's probably not very popular. So maybe if we drop Laporta down to Kmet and our bring back is just, the Goff stack goes off and the Bears are forced to throw a bunch. So we have DJ Moore and Kmet as a bring back. Obviously, tight end, you don't necessarily need a ton of to pay off. Now, maybe on the slate you do. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think in this game scenario, it actually plays itself out pretty well where this stack, Gibbs and Amon-Ra are the main scorers. They get there, forcing the Bears to throw a ton. Garbage time, Moore and Kmet get there. Then we have Dowdle, Cowboys defense, and now we have a remaining 5,100. So I do think that that makes a lot more sense. As I said, if I'm just playing somebody from that game, the late game, 4,900 for Watson makes a ton of sense. So that leaves us with 5,300. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sketchy because I'd say Keenan Allen is probably the best play there at only 5,100. But if I'm not playing Caleb Williams, I don't think it makes sense to go Moore, Komet, and Allen. So I would most likely want to drop down all the way to Wicks and then see if I can maybe change that Watson. So that would leave us 6K. So 6K. So now we have Goff, Gibbs, Dowdle, Amon Ra, DJ Moore, Wicks, Komet, Cowboys defense. So then that would give us. Who do we want to play at flex? Decisions. I know this is exhilarating audio for you guys, but I think I would probably prefer. I don't want to play Tracy if I'm just going with the Cowboys and Dowdle. So it would probably be either Waddle as a bring back to Wicks or Reed. So I'm going to go Waddle in this one. So we have Goff, Gibbs, Dowdle, Amon Ra, DJ Moore, Wicks, Komet, Waddle, and the Cowboys. That leaves you $600 remaining salary. You can leave as much money as you want on the table if you're comfortable with your lineups this week. It will help get you different on a short slate. So that Goff one, a little bit difficult there as far as paying up for those guys. So if we just keep that shell there and take out Gibbs, then we can maybe add Laporta into this one. So keep him on Raw. Laporta. Try and throw. I think let's try the onslaught here. Let's go Montgomery. So Montgomery can score a touchdown. Goff can go off, throw to Amon Ra and Laporta. We got our Lions onslaught here. We bring it back with a DJ Moore. You can change it to Allen if you want, or I probably wouldn't just play Komet as a single solo bear. But so far we have Goff, Montgomery, Dowdle, Amon Ra, DJ Moore, Laporta, Cowboys defense. So we need a wide receiver and a flex. 5,300 left for that. So here I will plug in the Watson, and then at our flex, we can fit Tyrone Tracy or Reed. Going to go with Tyrone Tracy here. And then with that, I think if Tracy is getting there, the game would probably have to be a little bit closer. I don't know that I would love the Cowboys D as much. So probably take them out, and I don't know. I would probably don't have any Dolphins in this lineup, so I would switch to the Packers. So I actually like that quite a bit here with this Lions stack. You go Goff to Amon Ra, Laporta, Montgomery also in there. So obviously Detroit 30-point team implied total if they get there. That this probably looks pretty good. A lot of the scoring could go through these guys. Have a skinny stack of Dowdle and Tracy, and then DJ Moore was our bring back of that first game, and then Christian Watson and Packers defense. So I like the Detroit side of things quite a bit here. And then one more before we get out of here. I want to do this 2-1 and just see what we have with that. So I do think it's going to be a little bit less popular. So if we go Tua at 6K, we pair him with Achane. We also go with Jonnu Smith, and I do think that this will be the most popular iteration of it. That's kind of the reason why I'm starting with it. And then I would probably throw. You know what? Let's take Achane out just because we know that Achane pairs well with Tua or without, and he'll probably be the more popular. And let's go Gibbs here. Let's say Gibbs goes off in that first game, and then maybe you wouldn't need Achane as much there if Gibbs could outscore him. And then we can save a little bit of money by going down to Tyreek with Tua. So we have Tua, Tyreek, Jonnu, and then Gibbs is our main player in that first one. I would probably see if we can get away with Jacobs here. Then a Jaden Reed. Probably not going to work with Jacobs. All right, sorry. This is it. And then we're getting out of here. Just want to go through some strategies for you guys. I just know that this can be kind of boring from time to time when I hear people building lineups. It's not the best, but let's go with, you know what? Let's save a little bit of money here. Let's go with Roshan and say that he does actually get a touchdown here, 4,500. And then that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. So we can go back to Reed. Play our defense and see what we got left. We'll go with the Cowboys again because we're not really focused on that game. And now we have 6K left per player. So I'm going to go with Jameson Williams. So our Lions exposure is Gibbs and Jameson Williams. We have a Roshan bring back where maybe he can score a touchdown early. And then we have 5,900 left for our flex, which I would most likely go with DJ Moore or Dowdle. You can really take your pick there. Probably prefer DJ Moore because I do think that first game probably is the one that you want. So we got some pretty good exposure here. For the first game, we have Gibbs, Javonte Williams, or not Javonte, sorry, Jameson Williams. We have Roshan Johnson, DJ Moore. Then the late game, we have Tua to Tyreek to Jonnu. And then we have Jaden Reed as our Packers exposure. Cowboys defense, I like it. I think it definitely gets you a little bit different too on the slate. You're leaving $300, which is absolutely nothing. But I don't think that Tyreek will be as popular with Tua. I think a lot of people will go Achane or chase that Waddle game that they just saw. Gibbs, Jameson is great for our Detroit exposure. I think Roshan gives you the chance of a touchdown and probably is not popular at all. So definitely like that. Just wanted to go through a couple games there, couple strategies, build some lineups out. But that's it. We got Thanksgiving slate right around the corner. So definitely excited. It's crazy how fast the season is going. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you for listening. As always, I am very grateful for everyone that listens and supports, likes, comments, even though a lot of you aren't commenting or liking the video, but that's besides the point. And sorry about missing last week. It was absolute chaos. Had a kid that had a stomach bug. Then the next day was a snow day, so I was going to record during the day, but then they were home all day, so really didn't get to. And now both of them have strep, so things are getting better. Anyways, that's going to do it. I will be back later in the week to break down the full Sunday slate, but just wanted to get out a pod for the Thanksgiving slate and some of the things I'm looking at there. Just to recap, I did bet the Lions -2.5 and the Green Bay money line. That's -105. I was looking at a pairing of, it was alt lines. It was 58.5 for CeeDee Lamb and just 10 yards receiving for Gibbs. And that was actually at plus money. I think it was like plus 108 or something like that. So just keep an eye on that. That might be something I throw in there. And then also, I like Jameson Williams over 46.5. I've seen him over 48.5. I'd probably take either of those numbers. So I do like his receiving yards. Tends to have pretty good games at home. I think he averages somewhere near 100 yards. So I do like that quite a bit. But that's what we're looking at so far for Thanksgiving. As always, check out thehelmsports.com. I will have all my bets up there. And then obviously the Mad Lab MMA, as soon as I make them, they go into the Discord. So check all that out. And that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.